Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of Pride Month. Today, the artist we're going to check out is ANOHNI. The song is called Scapegoat from the My Back Was a Bridge for You to Cross album, which is a crazy album title. Scapegoat seems to line up within those same themes. So let's see how this checks out. Dive in, see what ANOHNI is bringing to the table today.
You're so killable, just so killable. It's not personal, it's just the way you were born. And in this society, scapegoat is all I can be. Oh, you're so killable. I can say just what I want, and I can use you like a toilet, and I can punch you and take all of my hate into your body.
Very wide vibrato, not just held for a specific syllable either, but consistent through an entire line.
And take all of my hate into your body. But here for me to loathe.
So the verse is this bluesier back and forth between the chords and the vocal melody.
All I have to do is want it. You're so killable, disappearable. This one we need not protect, but this one's a freebie for our guns. And take this one to place. You better have your way. And take to give, or why you want to live. You're my scapegoat. It's not personal, it's not personal.
A lot of compression here, filling out all of this space underneath this lead guitar and piano. There's a freedom in here, but also a massive release. We had a tension. been pretty consistent from the beginning. That was bubbling up even more just prior to this.
You're my scapegoat. It's not personal.
All right. For the most part of this track, we have a fairly straightforward sort of bluesy thing going on. A bit more on the minimal side, though we do enter into something a bit more bluesy country, a light bluesy rock thing going on around the midpoint, and then the eruption of emotion at the end of the track as we kind of attempt to escape this bluesy weight, this feeling of melancholy that persists throughout the track. And I don't know, fly away from that. There's that massive eruption. The guitars, the piano, they're just soaring. There's a lot of rising arpeggiation going on here. It's a very upward looking segment to the track that ultimately kind of peters out until we're back down to just the vocals and piano again at the end of the song. So we do have a core idea that we continue to return to, and then peppered against that, we have these slightly different and at one time larger moments to contrast it. Through that lens, a lot of the song ends up just being the piano and the vocals. It ends up feeling very vulnerable, maybe personal, lonely, though for sure. Especially when you pair the moodiness to it. This isn't a song about uplift or positivity or joy. It's about this weight that's just crushing our narrator. It's a darkness that sits around them, something that they try at the end to leave but can't. And so we have this very personal feeling throughout this entire thing where it feels like it's just us in this room with the vocalist and they're just kind of pouring their hearts out to us. I don't think much of this track feels good. And that's not from a perspective of like comprehension or coherence or sonic roundedness. I think it is well produced, well performed. Everything just gels incredibly well, but it just doesn't feel good to listen to. It is very somber. This is the opposite of like a joyous, dancey track, a club song or something to just headbang and mosh around to. This is incredibly low energy. There's a dreariness that matches all of that. The vocals, interestingly, though, are incredibly well performed. I mean, everything in here is performed well to begin with, so it's not like this is an outlier in that regard, but for this emotion, the vocalist kind of isn't delivering sorrow or a weakness or down in the dumps. Um, it is still competently created in like the physical elements of production, not the engineer side of things, but how this vocalist is making their tone. It is well supported with air, it is resonant, the vibrato is wide and gorgeous. It is traditionally good singing, which to me feels at odds with this for one reason or another that I can't really quite put on it. Like I said, all the other instrumentation is very well done too. I think it would be a bit odd if the vocals came across a bit more emotional and raw. But I also feel like the song needs that. Just on a personal level, the song to me is a bit ineffective at delivering this sorrow because the atmosphere is strong with it, but the vocals kind of aren't. I feel that the vocals are disconnected from the emotion of the track. But I think a lot of that just comes down to the strength of the emotion in the atmosphere versus the vocal delivery. I think that if the dreariness had been toned down a little bit, I wouldn't have noticed that the vocals weren't being, I suppose, theatric or performative in that sense. But maybe the wide vibrato is the vocalist's way of trying to induce some emotion into it. Maybe they don't typically use that type of uh, effect on their vocals. I don't know. But just listening to this, I'm not really getting much of the emotion out of it, unfortunately. And so it's something that I can understand from Arm's Reach. This is a dreary song. It's very bluesy. It's very grounded with a lot of weight to it, but it isn't one that I feel that emotion in my bones. It's one that I can just understand. But the vocals here are gorgeous, and for that alone, maybe it was worth going this route rather than something more performative. Now, I mentioned a lot of this is just piano and vocals, and that is true, but we do expand out of that at times. Our first one was when we brought in a larger band. We have some very light drumming, cymbal heavy, light cymbal, like hi-hats, a little bit of a ride cymbal in there, nothing bright and shimmery like China's or splash cymbals or anything like that. Just very measured, brighter tone, limited snare usage. We have a piano that sort of explores some other things. As I mentioned in the reaction itself, the verse is mostly the vocal and the piano chords just trading off. Here, though, they're simultaneous and the piano gets to explore things other than chord progression. We also had, I believe, some light guitar in here, introducing that sound before we would get the explosive electric guitar later on. And we have a bass guitar in here doing some light walking sounds, walking bass line sounds, kind of arpeggiating around the chord itself. Not quickly, though. I think that's the thing that stands out to me. It almost borders on pedal tone with how slowly it wants to proceed through this harmonic information. That slowness, that measuredness lines up really well with the emotional weight of this track, and I think it was ultimately the right decision to go on there. Even the drums being more reserved keep it feeling smaller than it could be, and allows the ending to punch up the way that it does. So all these decisions are absolutely right. They're the things that help embellish this track while retaining this sort of minimalism. There's still not a lot going on compared to other music, especially when you look at music that's just, full, whether you're looking like a big orchestra or something massive like post-metal or something like that. It's a minimal sound overall. But I like how it keeps and retains its scope. It never tries to be bigger than what it is. And I think that's what makes the ending so interesting, is that we do have all of this tension that has been bubbling this entire time, and you can feel it really starting to get to rolling here at the end. And then there's the outburst of our electric guitar and the piano that plays alongside it. And it's interesting because it is a soaring idea in general, but harmonically, we're not looking at freedom. The chords here, the key that we're in, these are not necessarily positive. We still have a lot of bluesy elements here. Note choices and intervals are still leaning more towards a grounded, moody feeling. But we have this massive expression from the guitar. We have this constant rising arpeggiation from the guitar and the piano. Everything, as I mentioned, is pointing upwards except the harmony, except the chords, except honestly, even the note choices at times. We might have rising pitch, but as we're going up these notes, what they're telling me isn't one of joy or escape or freedom. And this clash is very interesting because it feels like a release. It's a lot of the distortion that sits on the side that makes it feel like our ground has risen a bit. We have come up a bit, climbed a few rungs of the ladder, so to speak. We're not quite on that low level as we were, or at least that's the impression it gives. We have the compression doesn't just raise the floor, but it also creates all this movement where there was silence, where there was emptiness. There's now, at the very least, static. The drums have expanded their sound a little bit. And of course, the guitar solo is loud in a way that none of the instruments have been. Everything feels like it should be positive, and yet it isn't. And that clash absolutely implies the finale we get, which ends up, I think, even more minimal, even lonelier, even more grounded, personal, and small than we began the track on. Either whatever was holding us down gave us a false sense of freedom, or this is all a dream. What it could be if we escaped this, but we snap back to reality and there's no means for that. We're still here and we will remain here. And that hurts even more after imagining what could be. Yeah, very moody track overall. Let's hit some lyrics and see if any of that lines up with what I got out of the music. This track is about a narrator who completely dehumanizes someone and instills all negativity into them to the point that our narrator can do anything to them guilt-free. In fact, the very first verse goes to the utmost extreme. You're so killable. It's not personal. It's just the way you were born. Verse 2 says, in this society, you can only be a scapegoat. I can say whatever I want to you. The chorus says I can punch you and take all my hate out into your body. The third verse says that you're disappearable. You're the one that we don't need to protect. Verse 4 says it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. It doesn't matter what you've got to give or why you want to live. You're just my scapegoat. It's not personal. So I did a little bit of looking into who ANOHNI is, so I can get some perspective on this, trying to figure out what this is about. And the best I could come up with is that she's trans, and this is a song from the perspective of a transphobe who is openly admitting that they actually have nothing personal against ANOHNI or trans people in general, but that they're an easy scapegoat to pin every single negative thing of society onto, and the reality that so much violence does come to trans folk because of this othering. And through that lens, I think it really makes the ending have impact in a way that I didn't really feel from the vocal delivery. Because I had mentioned that the ending is this extremity, and I think on one hand, it is the rising and consistent violence towards trans folk, but on the other hand, it could be a vision of a utopian future where people just don't care what you do with your life, where there is no more hate for trans people, freedom from that. And then we come back down to reality, to the way the world runs right now, and we have a repetition of those two important lines. You're my scapegoat. It's nothing personal. And I think that second sentence is what really hurts the most here. At least, I mean, from my perspective, I'm this is going to be completely divorced from the authorial intent here. But for me, it's one thing if I've done something and you hate me for it, and I'm like, okay, that's cause and effect. Maybe I think you're over exaggerating, but at least I get it. But if you've never met me and you still want to hurt me, you still want to kill me for something I am, not even something I've done. I mean, this goes into uh, homophobia, transphobia, racism, sexism, misogyny, you name it. Just because of the way I look or the things that I do that are completely irrelevant to you, you hate me enough to wish death on me for that. To me, that hurts more because it's so stupid. It's so frivolous. It's vapid. It's empty. But despite that, it is still capable of so much pain, physical and emotional, the mental stress of that, of knowing these people are around you and despise you this much, despite you've never said a word to them. I think it was really important to put that line in here. It's not just about being a scapegoat. It's that it isn't even personal. Yeah, those are my thoughts on ANOHNI's Scapegoat. Let me know what you thought of this track. If there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you'd like to correct me on, or if you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this track, put all that down into the comment section, along with anything else that you'd like to add to the conversation. Above that, in the description box is a link for Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.